The Spartan Dominion, a Galactic Saga. Chapter 1. The Rise of the Spartan Dominion, in the endless void of the cosmos, where empires rise and fall like the flickering of dying stars. One name echoes through the galaxies: Sparta. Reforged in the heart of 1,000 suns, reborn in the crucible of war, they are the ultimate warriors. They are the immortal guardians of the Spartan Dominion. For centuries, the ancient ways of Sparta were thought lost to time, buried beneath the decadence of softer civilizations. But war never forgets. When the Terran Republic, the last great bastion of human rule, crumbled under its own corruption, its systems fractured into chaos. In the ashes of a dying empire, a remnant of warriors still carrying the blood of Sparta refused to fall with it. They took to the stars, forging a new destiny among the celestial battlegrounds of the Andromeda sector. Through blood and fire, they carved out a dominion where only the strong may rule. The Spartan Dominion was not built on diplomacy or treaties. It was not a union of merchants or scholars. It was an empire of warriors, bound by an iron code, where the only law was strength. Those who could not defend their claim had no right to hold it. And so they grew, expanding into uncharted worlds, taking only what they could keep by force. Their ascension did not go unnoticed. The Orion Syndicate, a coalition of mercenaries, pirates, and rogue traders, saw the Dominion as a threat to their lawless way of life. They sought to break the Spartans before they could become an unstoppable force. But they would soon learn, as all others had, that to challenge the Dominion was to embrace destruction. The Hall of Conquest inside the Grand Council Chamber, where the walls bore scars of past battles and banners of conquest hung from towering pillars, the most formidable warriors of Sparta knelt before their leader, High Strategos Leonidax. A titan of a man, his towering form clad in battle-worn armor, his face carved with the wisdom of countless wars, he stood before them with an unyielding gaze. His armor was no ceremonial relic. It bore the deep scars of battle, each etched line, a testament to wars fought and won. The golden laurels on his shoulders gleamed under the flickering blue light of the chamber's hollow projectors, displaying a strategic map of the Andromeda sector. Leonidax surveyed his warriors, each a living testament to the Dominion's might. There was Kira the Stormborn, a warrior whose fleet had crushed the pirate lords of Epsilon Prime, Darius the Iron Fang, whose siege engines had turned the skies of Titanus Phiv into firestorms, and Ajax the Red, the Dominion's deadliest assassin, whose name was whispered in fear across the sector. With a voice like thunder, Leonidax spoke. "Brothers and sisters of Sparta, our ancestors once ruled the battlefield with spear and shield. Now, we wield weapons of light, but our spirit remains unchanged. The Orion Syndicate believes we are like the empires before us, weak, corrupt, unworthy of the stars. They are wrong." He gestured to the holo display, showing enemy fleets gathering at the Dracon Nebula, a vital hyperspace corridor leading to the Dominion's core worlds. "They come with fire and greed, thinking us prey. Let them come. For every warrior they send, we will send back ashes. For every world they take, we shall claim 10. They will know that a Spartan never kneels. A Spartan never yields. A Spartan only conquers." A deafening war cry erupted through the chamber. Warriors slammed their fists against their chests in unison, the sound echoing like thunder. The fire of conquest burned in their eyes, their blood hot with the promise of battle. The call to war as the council adjourned. Warriors rushed to prepare for battle. Warships the size of cities, their hulls adorned with the crimson sigil of Sparta, roared to life in the orbital docks above Aegis Prime, the Dominion's capital. The Legionnaires, elite shock troops bred for war, readied their exo-armor and plasma spears. On the command bridge of the Hyperion, the Dominion's flagship, Leonidax watched as the fleet assembled in perfect formation. Unlike the chaotic mercenaries of the Orion Syndicate, the Spartans were warriors of discipline. Every ship moved as one, every soldier a piece of a greater war machine. Kira the Stormborn approached, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. "The Syndicate thinks us relics of the past," she said with a smirk. They do not understand that we are the future. Leonidax allowed himself a rare smile. And we shall teach them, in fire and steel. As the Dominion fleet surged forward into the darkness of space, the first battle of the war had begun. And the galaxy would soon remember why the name Sparta was spoken with fear. Chapter 2. The Blood Oath. Aboard the Aegis Invicta, the flagship of the Spartan fleet, the war chamber pulsed with the glow of a roaring brazier. Shadows flickered like wraiths against the iron walls, dancing across the faces of the warriors kneeling in solemn formation. The scent of burning oil and iron filled the air, mingling with the unspoken weight of destiny. Commander Darius stood before them, his presence as unwavering as the mountains of old Sparta. His voice carried the weight of 1,000 battles. Swear, upon the flame, brothers and sisters. Swear to uphold the code of Sparta, to fight without fear, to never retreat, to never surrender. From this moment forth, your lives belong to the Dominion. One by one, the warriors drew their blades, slicing their palms, offering their lifeblood to the oath. As their blood dripped into the brazier, the flames flared crimson, devouring their sacrifice. The ritual bound them beyond mere words, wove them into the eternal fabric of war itself. Cassandra gripped her blade tightly, her heart pounding. This was the moment she had trained for, fought for. Yet as she pressed the edge to her palm, a flicker of something unfamiliar stirred within her, a whisper of hesitation. She had spent her life striving for this honor, yet as she knelt among the warriors, she felt the ghost of another life tugging at the edges of her mind. The scent of olive groves, the laughter of her younger brother chasing her through the sunlit fields of Laconia, a past that had no place here, a life that ended the moment she stepped aboard the Aegis Invicta. She tightened her grip, silencing the thought. There was no turning back. The blade bit into her flesh, warm blood spilling onto the brazier's flame. The fire roared in approval, swallowing her past, leaving only the warrior she was meant to be. As the last warrior sealed their oath, they rose in unison, their expressions hard with purpose. Their march to war had begun. Before they left, Commander Darius placed a heavy hand on Cassandra's shoulder. His piercing gaze searched hers, as if sensing the brief moment of doubt. This oath binds you, Cassandra, more than any chains ever could. But it also frees you from fear, from hesitation. You are now beyond mortality, you are Spartan. She met his gaze, her emerald eyes burning with new fire. The doubt was gone, consumed by the oath, by the flame, by the path she had chosen. I will not fail, Commander. Darius nodded, satisfied. The blood oath had been sworn, there was no turning back. Chapter 3. The Battle of Helios Prime. The sky above Helios Prime burned red. Explosions rippled across the atmosphere as the Spartan fleet descended like a storm of fire and iron upon the cybernetic marauders known as the Nihil Horde. Plasma beams and kinetic railguns painted streaks of death across the void, while warships shattered in violent eruptions, debris raining down onto the war-torn surface below. On the planet's surface, once proud cities crumbled under relentless bombardments. Monolithic skyscrapers buckled and collapsed like dying titans, sending clouds of dust and molten steel into the air. The scent of ozone mixed with burning flesh, and the screams of the fallen echoed through the shattered streets. Amidst the chaos, High Strategos Leonidax stood upon the last remaining stronghold, a crumbling fortress of reinforced obsidian, its walls adorned with the banners of Sparta. His bronze-plated armor was scarred with battle wounds, yet his grip upon his thermopyric spear remained unshaken. He turned to the warriors beside him, his voice a thunderclap against the storm of war. Hold the line. No foe shall breach Spartan. Zoil, give them nothing but death. The warriors roared in response, their shields interlocking in an unbreakable phalanx. They were the last bastion, the last hope against the encroaching storm of the Nihil Horde. From the smoldering ruins, the enemy emerged. The Nihil Horde were abominations of flesh and steel, their cybernetic implants pulsing with eerie crimson light. Their skeletal frames moved with inhuman precision, their mechanical limbs wielding energy blades and mass accelerators. Where once they were men, now they were husks, enslaved by the cold hunger of the Oblivion Protocol, a machine consciousness that sought to consume all organic life. A mechanical warlord towering over the battlefield strode forward. Its multi-eyed skull helm scanned the Spartans with lifeless efficiency, its spiked war scythe dripping with molten slag. A synthesized voice, devoid of emotion, boomed across the battlefield. Your defiance is meaningless. Submit to the nihil. Become one, or perish. Leonidax's lips curled into a snarl. Spartans do not kneel. With a defiant roar, he hurled his spear, the weapon crackling with golden energy. It tore through the air like a thunderbolt, piercing the machine warlord's chest. The creature staggered but did not fall. Instead, it let out a mechanical shriek, and the nihil horde surged forward. The battle erupted. Cassandra fought amidst the carnage, her emerald eyes ablaze with fury. She weaved between the enemy lines, her twin blades cutting down the cybernetic horrors with brutal efficiency. Every strike was fueled by the oath she had sworn, by the fire that now burned in her blood. To her left, Dario swung his warhammer with the force of a falling star, crushing enemy skulls into dust. To her right, warriors fell, torn apart by the merciless advance of the nihil. The Spartans held their ground, but the tide was relentless. For every machine they destroyed, 2 more took its place. The horde was endless, its will absolute. Leonidax knew this battle could not be won by sheer force alone. He activated his command uplink, his voice echoing to the fleet above. This is High Strategos Leonidax. We are being overrun. Initiate Protocol Thermopylae. Burn them all. A moment of silence. Then from the heavens, the Spartan fleet responded. Orbital. Bombardment commenced. The sky turned white as energy lances rained down from the warships above, obliterating entire battalions of nihil in an instant. The battlefield became a furnace, metal bodies melting into slag, cybernetic limbs twitching as they were consumed by the storm. Cassandra fell to one knee, breathing heavily, the heat scorching her skin. As the dust settled, she saw the remnants of the nihil forces retreating, their mechanical minds calculating that survival was no longer an option. Helios Prime had held. Leonidax surveyed the battlefield, his armor blackened by smoke, his spear still gripped tightly in his gauntlet. Victory, at a cost. The bodies of fallen Spartans littered the ruins, their blood mingling with the wreckage of the enemy. But they had held the line, and as long as one Spartan still stood, the Dominion endured. Cassandra looked to the sky, where the Spartan fleet hovered like watchful gods. The war was far from over, but tonight they had earned the right to fight another day. Chapter 4, Shadows over Sparta. The Dominion had never known defeat. Every battle fought was a testament to Spartan supremacy. Every world conquered a tribute to their unyielding might. Yet, as their fleets soared across the Andromeda sector, claiming system after system in the name of Sparta, shadows crept into the heart of their empire. Victory had come at a cost. Though their warriors remained unmatched, the demands of constant war strained even the mightiest of nations. The great cities of Aegis Prime, proud capital of the Spartan Dominion, bustled with workers forging weapons of conquest, yet the murmurs of dissent grew louder among the conquered. It was in the Grand Council chambers, deep within the obsidian citadel of Olympus Mons, that the battle for Sparta's soul was waged, not with weapons, but with words. A house divided the eye. Circular chamber, vast and adorned with banners of conquest, resounded with heated debate. At the center stood High Strategos Leonidax, his armored presence a silent warning to all who spoke. Around him, senators, warlords, and magistrates bickered, their voices clashing like blades in battle. "We cannot sustain endless war," Senator Theon protested, his aging features lined with worry. "Our fleets are stretched thin, our supply lines overburdened. The people grow weary, and the outer colonies begin to resist our rule." A scoff echoed across the hall as warlord Xandrios rose to his feet. Clad in crimson armor, the scars on his face were reminders of battles won through sheer brutality. "A Spartan does not complain of hardship," he thundered. "Strength will bring order, as it always has. Those who defy us must be crushed, lest they spread weakness." Senator Theon shook his head. "Blind conquest is not strength, Xandrios. The true strength of an empire is endurance, not just brute force. If we continue this path, we will bleed ourselves dry." A murmur of agreement rippled through the council. Even some warlords hardened by decades of battle exchanged uncertain glances. It was a truth they could not ignore. War without end was a war lost before it began. But before Leonidax could speak, a voice, cold and sharp as a dagger, cut through the air. "Your arguments are meaningless." All turned to the far end of the chamber, where Archon Lysandros, head of Sparta's intelligence division, leaned forward from the shadows. Unlike the warlords, he did not wear armor, nor did he carry a warrior's presence. Instead, his blacks, robes and piercing gaze carried the weight of secrets, secrets that could break empires. While you squabble over supplies and conquests, something far greater looms in the darkness, Lysandros continued. Something that even the Nihil fear. A silence fell over the chamber. The Nihil, the infamous death cult that had plagued the outer systems, feared nothing. They had faced the Dominion in battle and perished with fanatical zeal. Yet now, the shadows whispered of a terror that even they would not confront. Leonidax narrowed his eyes. "Explain." The shadow beyond the stars Lysandros stepped forward, activating a holographic display. A dark star field flickered into existence, mapping the outer rim territories of the Dominion. Red markers pulsed like dying embers, denoting ships that had vanished without a trace. "Entire fleets have disappeared in the void beyond the expanse," Lysandros said. "Not destroyed, not conquered, simply gone." Leonidax studied the map, his mind sharpening like a blade. "Pirates?" Lysandros shook his head. "No wreckage, no distress signals, no survivors. Even the Nihil have abandoned these sectors, retreating to the inner systems. Their oracles speak of an endless night approaching, a force that devours both the strong and the weak alike." The warlords scoffed, but unease crept into the eyes of the senators. Theon's voice wavered. "Superstition." "Perhaps," Lysandros admitted, "but fear does not come without reason." Leonidax stepped forward, the weight of command pressing upon his shoulders. He had led the Dominion through countless battles, yet this was different. The Spartans had always known their enemies, flesh and blood foes who could be crushed beneath their might. But what did one do against an enemy that left nothing behind? "We do not fear the dark," he said at last, his voice steady. "If there is a threat, we will face it as we always have, with fire and steel." Xandrios pounded his fist against the table. "Then give the order, Strategos. Let us send our fleets and burn away this shadow." But Lysandros remained still. "I do not believe fire will save us this time." The words hung in the air, an omen of battles yet to come. A decision made that night. As the council chamber emptied and the warriors returned to their warships, Leonidax stood alone on the balcony of Olympus Mons. Below him, Aegis Prime stretched out in all directions, a city of warriors, a monument to conquest. Yet beyond the world's edge, the void awaited. The Dominion had never known defeat, never feared an enemy. But as the stars above flickered like dying embers, Leonidax could not shake the feeling that, for the first time, something was watching them from the abyss, and it was coming. Chapter 5. The Eclipse Armada, from the abyss of deep space, an ancient fleet stirred, shrouded in a veil of darkness and mystery. The Eclipse Armada, long thought to be a mere myth whispered among the stars, emerged from the void, their presence, an unsettling omen for the galaxy. Their ships, black as night and adorned with eerie, shimmering patterns, seemed to consume light itself, warping the very fabric of reality around them. This fleet possessed technology far beyond anything the Spartans had ever encountered, a fusion of arcane science and dark energy that left even the most seasoned warriors in awe and dread. High Strategos Leonidax stood in the dimly lit command chamber of the Dominion flagship, his gaze fixed intently on the star charts projected before him. The holographic display flickered, revealing the trajectory of the approaching armada. His face was grim, etched with lines of worry and determination. "This is no ordinary enemy," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, as if fearing that speaking too loudly would summon the doom they faced. "We may be facing the end of the Dominion, if we do not prepare." Around him the tension was palpable. The Spartans, renowned for their unyielding courage and discipline, now felt a creeping unease that gnawed at their resolve. The implications of the Eclipse Armada's emergence were staggering. This was not just a threat to their borders, it was a challenge to their very existence. The legends of the Eclipse Armada spoke of their ruthless efficiency, their ability to annihilate entire worlds, leaving nothing but silence and shadows in their wake. As the Strategic Council convened, the gravity of their situation weighed heavily upon them. "What do we know of their tactics?" asked Commander Thalia, her brow furrowed in thought. "Have they ever engaged in open conflict, or do they prefer to strike from the dark?" Leonidax consulted the archives, pulling up ancient records that detailed encounters with the Armada throughout history. "Their methods are unpredictable," he explained, the holograms shifting to show images of past battles. "They strike with precision, often targeting the most vital points of their enemies. We cannot afford to underestimate them. Their ships are equipped with cloaking technology, making them nearly invisible until it's too late." The Spartans now stood at the precipice of annihilation, the weight of impending doom pressing down on their shoulders. As war raged both within their ranks and beyond, they felt the cold grip of fear creeping in. The galaxy trembled, for the true war had only just begun. Leonidax knew that they had to act swiftly. "Prepare the fleet for immediate mobilization," he commanded, his voice rising with authority. "We must gather intelligence and develop strategies that exploit their weaknesses. The survival of our people depends on our ability to adapt and overcome." As the Spartans readied themselves for the fight ahead, a sense of unity began to emerge among them. They were warriors forged in the fires of countless battles, and though the Eclipse Armada loomed like a dark star on the horizon, they were determined to stand and fight. With the echoes of their ancestors urging them on, the Spartans steeled their resolve, ready to face whatever horrors awaited them in the cold void of space. And so, the stage was set for an epic confrontation, where legends would be tested, alliances forged, and the fate of the Dominion would hang in the balance. The Eclipse Armada had awakened, and the Spartans would either rise to meet their destiny or fall into the eternal darkness. Chapter 6. Shadows of the Past. As the Spartan fleet gathered, the atmosphere aboard the flagship was thick with urgency and anticipation. The hum of machinery and the low murmur of anxious voices filled the air as warriors prepared for the impending confrontation. Leonidax convened a war council with his most trusted commanders, each one a seasoned veteran of many battles. They gathered around a holographic table, a 3D representation of the approaching Eclipse Armada, flickering ominously in front of them, casting shadows that danced across their faces. Intelligence reports suggest that the Armada's formation is unlike anything we have seen before, said Commander Thalia, her brow furrowed in concentration as she pointed to the holographic display. "They are moving in a compact phalanx, suggesting a coordinated strike. We must anticipate their maneuvers, if we stand any chance of survival." The hologram pulsed with eerie light, illuminating the grim expressions of the commanders. The commanders exchanged wary glances, the weight of their shared responsibility evident in their tense silence. "We need to know more about their technology," argued Commander Aris, a sharp strategist known for his unconventional tactics. His voice was steady, but there was an undercurrent of urgency. "If we can disrupt their cloaking devices, we might level the playing field." He gestured emphatically, envisioning the implications of such a breakthrough. Leonidax nodded in agreement, his mind racing with possibilities. We must access the ancient archives of the Dominion. There may be forgotten records about the Eclipse Armada, their weaknesses, and how previous civilizations have dealt with them. The Council agreed, their resolve strengthening in the face of the unknown. A small team of Spartans was dispatched to the archives, racing against time to uncover secrets that might tip the scales in their favor. As the team delved into dusty tomes and fragmented data, the fleet readied itself. The looming presence of the Eclipse Armada weighed heavily on everyone's minds, like a storm cloud threatening to unleash its fury. The Spartans trained relentlessly, honing their skills and fortifying their ships for the battle ahead. Every warrior knew that they were fighting not just for their lives, but for the very survival of their way of life. While the team sifted through ancient scrolls and holographic projections in the archives, Leonidas found himself reflecting on the stories his father had told him as a child, tales of brave warriors facing insurmountable odds, of light battling the darkness. He could almost hear his father's voice echoing in his mind, recounting heroic deeds and the sacrifices made in the name of honor. Those tales had instilled in him a sense of purpose, a belief that hope could thrive even in the direst of circumstances. As he stood at the helm of the flagship, watching his crew prepare for what lay ahead, Leonidas felt a familiar surge of determination. He understood now that those stories were not mere fantasy, but a reminder of the strength that resided within them. With the weight of history on their shoulders, they would rise to meet their fate, forging their own legend in the annals of time. He turned to his commanders, each one a pillar of strength, and declared, "We will not be mere footnotes in this battle. We will etch our names into the stars." With that, the council was set in motion. As strategies were formulated and battle plans laid out, a newfound energy coursed through the ship. The Spartans were readying themselves to confront not only an enemy, but also the shadows of their own pasts. Each warrior carried their own stories, their own burdens, and together they would harness those experiences to face the unknown. Meanwhile, in the depths of the archives, the small team of Spartans unearthed a treasure trove of knowledge. Ancient texts hinted at the Eclipse Armada's vulnerabilities, faint echoes of past battles that illuminated their path. The more they uncovered, the clearer their strategy became, each piece of information a crucial puzzle in the greater scheme of survival. With every turn of the page, hope flickered brighter, illuminating the darkness that threatened to engulf them. As the last echoes of preparation reverberated through the flagship, Leonidas stood resolute, ready to lead his people into the fray. The shadows of the past loomed large, but within them lay the lessons of resilience and courage that would guide them into the future. Chapter 7. Echoes of the eclipse days turned into sleepless nights as the Spartans combed through the ancient records, sifting through layers of dust and forgotten lore in search of a glimmer of hope. It was a task that seemed daunting, yet in the depths of their shared determination, a breakthrough finally emerged. A young data analyst named Mira, with her keen intellect and unyielding spirit, discovered a reference to a critical vulnerability in the Armada's technology, an ancient, electromagnetic pulse weapon hidden in the archives of the Old Dominion. This weapon had the power to temporarily disable the cloaking systems of the Armada, rendering their ships visible and vulnerable. "This is it," Mira exclaimed, her eyes wide with excitement as she stood before the holographic display. The glowing figures of the Armada ships flickered, revealing their ominous silhouettes. "If we can deploy an EMP strike at the right moment, we can expose their ships and give our fleet a fighting chance." Leonidas felt a surge of hope course through him, dispelling the shadows of despair that had loomed over them for so long. He turned to his commanders, his voice resolute and commanding. "We must move quickly," he urged, rallying their spirits. "Prepare the EMP devices for deployment. We'll position ourselves on the periphery of their formation, ready to strike when they engage us." The atmosphere on the flagship shifted as the fleet made its preparations, the tension palpable as each Spartan steeled themselves for the coming battle. Memories of past victories and tales of valor echoed in their hearts, instilling a fierce resolve that ignited their spirits. As the time drew near, They gathered on the deck of the flagship, united in purpose, their faces set with determination. Today, we fight not just for ourselves but for every soul in the Dominion, Leonidax declared, his voice resonating with passion and unwavering conviction. We will face the darkness together and emerge as the light. The Spartans cheered, their voices rising in unison, a chorus of defiance against the impending doom. They shared glances, knowing that each of them carried the weight of their ancestors' legacy, and they were ready to forge their own path. As the fleets moved into position, the shadows of the Eclipse Armada loomed closer, their sleek ships gliding silently through the void like predators hunting in the dark. In the command room, Mira monitored the enemy fleet, her fingers dancing over the controls as she tracked their movements. They're on a direct course for the Outer Rim colonies, she noted, her brow furrowing in concentration. We have to be precise with our timing. If we miss the window, all of this will be for nothing. Trust in the plan, Mira, Leonidax reassured her, sensing her unease. We've trained for this moment. You've done incredible work. We will adapt if we need to. As they approached the final coordinates, the Spartans felt the weight of destiny upon them, ready to confront the ancient enemy that had haunted the galaxy for eons. The darkness seemed to thicken around them, but within that darkness a flicker of hope glimmered. Prepare for the EMP strike, Leonidax commanded, adrenaline coursing through his veins. On my mark! The tension reached a fever pitch as the ships of the Eclipse Armada came into view, their cloaked forms shimmering into existence as they engaged their weapons. The Spartans held their breath, every heartbeat echoing the ancient battle cries of their forebears. This was their moment, the moment to turn the tide, to reclaim their destiny and honor the sacrifices of those who had come before them. Mark, Leonidax shouted, and in that instant, the electromagnetic pulse surged forth from their flagship, illuminating the void with a brilliant flash. The Armada's cloaking systems faltered, and the once invisible ships became starkly visible against the backdrop of the stars. Cheers erupted from the Spartans, their battle cry piercing the silence of space. With their enemy exposed, they charged forward, a united front ready to reclaim their future and etch their names into the annals of history. The echoes of the past resonated around them, a symphony of courage and resolve as they faced the darkness head-on, determined to emerge victorious. Chapter 8. The Storm of Battle. The moment of reckoning had arrived. As the Eclipse Armada approached, the Spartan fleet held its ground, their hearts pounding in unison. Tension filled the air like the quiet before a storm, and the vastness of space surrounding them became a silent witness to the impending clash. The vastness of the void felt charged with a palpable energy, as if the cosmos itself was holding its breath. Now, Leonidax commanded, his voice cutting through the tense silence like a blade. In perfect synchrony, the Spartan ships unleashed their EMP weapons, brilliant bursts of energy lighting up the darkness. The display was dazzling yet terrifying, illuminating the ominous silhouette of the Eclipse Armada. In that fleeting moment, the cloaked vessels flickered and shimmered, revealing their true forms, a terrifying sight of sleek, deadly ships bristling with an array of weaponry, each one a harbinger of destruction. The Armada responded with ruthless efficiency. Plasma fire erupted from their ranks, a violent storm of energy that illuminated the void like a dying star. The Spartan ships rocked under the onslaught, metal groaning and alarms blaring. But they held firm, their crews steeled. By determination, they returned fire with precision and resolve, their own weapons answering the fury of the Eclipse Armada. Explosions echoed through the cosmos, a symphony of chaos and fury, as the two forces collided in a fierce dance of destruction. Leonidax steered his flagship, the Elysium, into the fray, his hands steady on the controls as he coordinated attacks. With skillful determination, he felt the weight of every decision on his shoulders, knowing that the lives of his crew depended on his leadership. His commanders fought bravely by his side, pushing back against the relentless assault of the Eclipse Armada. Yet, despite their tenacity, the Dark Fleet was relentless. Its ships regrouped and struck with deadly accuracy, moving as a cohesive unit forged in malice. As the battle raged, the Spartans began to feel the tide turn against them. Commander Thalia's ship, the Aegis, was hit, flames erupting from its hull. The panic in her voice came through the comms. "We need more firepower. Reinforce our positions." The urgency of her words struck Leonidas like a physical blow. His heart raced as he surveyed the scene unfolding before him. Ships that had once glimmered with promise were now marred by damage, their hulls scarred and systems failing. The toll of the battle was etched into the faces of his crew, each one a testament to the struggle they faced. "All ships form a defensive perimeter," Leonidas barked, his voice rising above the chaos. "We need to protect our wounded and regroup." He watched as his orders were swiftly executed. The Spartan fleet began to maneuver into formation, creating a protective barrier around the Aegis and other damaged vessels. The strategy was risky, but desperation fueled their resolve. The enemy pressed on, waves of plasma fire cascading toward the Spartans. Leonidas could see the sheer volume of enemy ships, their dark silhouettes like vultures circling a carcass. The Spartans retaliated, their weapons unleashing torrents of energy, striking back with all the fury they could muster. As explosions erupted around him, Leonidas's mind raced. He had to find a way to turn the tide of battle. The stakes had never been higher, and failure was not an option. He remembered the training drills, the countless hours spent preparing for this very moment, and he steeled himself. "Commanders, prepare to execute Plan Delta," he shouted. "We'll draw them into our ambush. Focus fire on their lead ships. On my mark." The Spartans rallied, their determination igniting like a spark in the dark. With a deep breath, he steadied himself. 3, 2, 1. Mark. The Spartans unleashed their fire, channeling all their energy into a concentrated strike aimed at the lead ships of the Eclipse Armada. The resulting explosion was cataclysmic, a bright flash that momentarily illuminated the battlefield as enemy ships were torn apart. But Leonidas knew it was only a temporary reprieve. The battle was far from over, and the true storm of conflict was just beginning. The Spartans stood united, resolute in the face of chaos, ready to confront whatever darkness the Eclipse Armada had yet to unleash. Chapter 9. A ray of hope. Amidst the chaos, hope flickered like a fragile flame as Mira's team worked frantically in the flagship's command center. The once sterile room was now filled with the sounds of clattering keyboards and urgent voices. Each member of the crew focused on a singular goal, scouring the ancient archives for additional strategies that could turn the tide of battle. Holographic displays flickered around them, illuminating their determined faces with a ghostly light. The atmosphere was thick with tension, but Mira's voice cut through the noise like a beacon of clarity. "Hi, Strategos. I found a record of a secret weapon developed centuries ago. A hypernova cannon that could unleash an energy blast capable of disabling multiple enemy ships." Her eyes shone with a mix of excitement and fear, recognizing the gravity of what she had uncovered. Leonidas, the high strategos, turned sharply, urgency lacing his voice as he leaned closer to the screen. "Can we deploy it?" His heart raced, sensing a glimmer of hope amidst the despair that had surrounded them for so long. Mira's fingers danced across the interface as she analyzed the data. "It requires a significant amount of power, but if we can reroute energy from our remaining ships, it could work." Her determination burned brightly, a fierce resolve igniting within her as she spoke. Leonidas wasted no time. He felt the weight of their situation pressing down on him like a mantle of lead. "Do it! Every ship that can still fight, redirect your power to the flagship." His voice resonated throughout the fleet, a rallying cry that pierced the gloom of defeat. The order spread like wildfire, igniting a fierce sense of unity among the Spartans. They began pooling their resources, a collective act of defiance against the encroaching darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. With the energy coalescing in the flagship, Leonidas felt a surge of hope pulse through him. He surveyed the battlefield, a chaotic tableau of destruction and despair. But amidst it all, a new resolve began to fill the Spartan ranks. "Prepare to fire on my mark," he shouted, adrenaline coursing through his veins like liquid fire. The tension in the air room was palpable. Even the air seemed to crackle with anticipation as they readied themselves for the decisive moment. As the cannon charged, Leonidas steeled himself, drawing strength from the tales of valor he had grown up with. Stories of heroes who had faced insurmountable odds and emerged victorious. "For the Dominion!" he roared, his voice rising above the cacophony of battle, a clarion call for courage and defiance. "Now!" With a thunderous roar, the hypernova cannon unleashed a brilliant beam of energy, cutting through the void like a sword of light. It struck the heart of the Eclipse Armada with devastating precision, engulfing several ships in a dazzling explosion that illuminated the darkness of space. The very fabric of the cosmos seemed to tremble as the blast rippled outward, creating a shockwave that sent enemy ships spiraling into chaos. The brilliance of the explosion contrasted starkly with the surrounding void, a reminder that even in darkness, light could prevail. The Spartans erupted in cheers, their spirits rekindled as they pressed the advantage. The tide of battle began to shift, and with each strike they fought harder, emboldened by the flicker of hope that now burned brightly in their hearts. The echoes of their cheers reverberated throughout the flagship, filling every corner with renewed purpose. With the Eclipse Armada reeling from the unexpected assault, Leonidas knew they had a chance to turn the tide. "Push forward," he commanded, the fire of determination igniting within him. Leading his fleet into the heart of the enemy formation, he felt a surge of adrenaline as they fought with all their might, unwavering in their resolve to protect their home and their legacy. Each ship in their formation moved with newfound vigor, their spirits soaring on the wings of hope as they embraced the fight. Amidst the chaos of battle, a sense of camaraderie blossomed. The Spartans fought not just for survival, but for each other, for their shared history, and for the dreams of a future that now seemed possible once more. They would fight until their last breath, unified in their quest to reclaim their destiny and to prove that hope, even in the darkest of times, could ignite a flame of courage that could not be extinguished. Chapter 10. The Reckoning. With the hypernova cannon's devastating impact echoing through space, the Spartans rallied, feeling a newfound energy surge through their ranks. The tide had shifted, but Leonidas knew the battle was far from over. The Eclipse Armada, though reeling, would not succumb easily. As the remnants of the enemy fleet regrouped, he sensed their desperation, a wounded beast ready to strike back with ferocity. In the command center, Mira and her team worked tirelessly to maintain their momentum. "We need to capitalize on their disarray," Mira urged, her fingers tapping rapidly on the control panel. "If we can disrupt their communications, we can fragment their forces even further." Leonidas nodded, his mind racing with strategy. "Coordinate with the stealth ships. Have them slip behind enemy lines and deploy jamming signals. We need to keep them off balance." As the orders were transmitted, a sense of urgency filled the flagship. The Spartans prepared for what was to come, knowing that this was their moment to seize the advantage. The fleet began to shift into formation, the remnants of their once mighty force now a united front, fueled by hope and determination. Meanwhile, in the depths of the enemy flagship, the commander of the Eclipse Armada, a figure cloaked in shadow, seethed with rage. "They dare to challenge us?" he hissed, his voice a low growl. "Reinforce our communications. We cannot let this pathetic rebellion think they can claim victory." He gestured to a screen displaying the Spartan fleet, now emboldened and pushing forward. "Prepare the vortex array. We will show them the true meaning of despair." As the order was given, a flicker of dread crept into Leonidas's heart. He knew that the Eclipse Armada possessed devastating weapons capable of tearing apart fleets. In moments, "Mira," he called out, urgency gripping him. "What's their range on the vortex array?" Mira's face paled as she checked the data. "If they activate it, they could wipe out entire sections of our fleet in one shot. We need to stop them before they get the chance." Leonidas turned to his crew, steeling himself for the challenge ahead. "All ships, full speed ahead. We need to close the distance and disrupt their weapon systems. Our survival depends on it." With the command ringing in their ears, The Spartan fleet surged forward, weaving through the debris of the battlefield. As they approached the Eclipse flagship, Leonidax felt a mix of fear and determination. This was the moment they had trained for, the culmination of every lesson learned in battle. Chapter 11, A Dance of Destiny. The Spartans approached the Eclipse flagship, a colossal behemoth looming ominously in the dark. As they neared, the air crackled with tension, and the stars seemed to dim in anticipation of the impending clash. Leonidax could see the enemy ships mobilizing, forming a protective barrier around their flagship as they prepared to unleash the devastating power of the Vortex Array, a weapon rumored to be capable of annihilating entire fleets in a single sweep. "Stay sharp, everyone," Leonidax shouted, his voice steadying the nerves of his crew. The bridge of the Spartan ship buzzed with energy, crew members glancing at one another, their expressions a mix of determination and fear. "We need to create a diversion. Mira, can we manipulate their targeting systems?" Mira's fingers flew across her console, her focus unwavering amidst the chaos. "I can create false signals to confuse their targeting systems. It won't last long, but it might give us the window we need." Her voice held a confidence that reassured the crew, though the weight of the moment pressed heavily on her shoulders. "Do it," Leonidax commanded, his heart racing as he watched their ships engage the enemy. The battlefield erupted into a chaotic dance of laser fire and explosions, the dark expanse of space illuminated by the vibrant colors of battle. Every blast, every burst of light felt like a heartbeat, each one echoing the stakes they faced. Mira's voice rang out, filled with urgency. "False signals deployed. Now, let's move." As the enemy ships diverted their fire, Leonidax led the charge, his ship racing forward like a comet streaking through the void. The adrenaline surged through him, propelling him to the forefront of the fray. As they closed in, the intensity of the battle escalated, each ship a player in a deadly ballet. The Spartan fleet engaged in fierce dogfights, weaving through enemy fire with precision. Leonidax's pulse quickened. Every moment felt like an eternity, filled with the sound of metal clashing and the distant cries of battle. The Vortex Array glowed ominously at the center of the Eclipse flagship, a pulsating reminder of the threat they faced, its energy building like a storm ready to break. Suddenly, a blast rocked the flagship. The energy beam erupted from the Vortex Array, narrowly missing Leonidax's ship as it tore through the darkness. He felt the shock wave ripple through his vessel, throwing his crew off balance and rattling their resolve. "Status report," he barked, regaining his composure amidst the chaos. "We're still intact, Captain, but we need to act fast," a crew member shouted back, gripping the console tightly as alarms blared around them. "We need to take that out." Leonidax shouted, determination burning in his eyes. "Prepare the torpedoes." The crew moved with urgency, adrenaline fueling their actions as they loaded the torpedoes, every second ticking away like a countdown to disaster. As the crew readied the launch, Mira's voice rang out again, cutting through the noise. "I'm detecting a weak point in their shield just to the left of the array. If we can hit that spot, we might be able to disable it." Her eyes were wide with a mix of fear and hope, the burden of their success resting on her shoulders. "On my mark!" Leonidax shouted, focusing on the enemy flagship. The energy of the battle surged around them, a cacophony of sound and light as they prepared for their final strike. He could see the chaos unfolding outside the viewport, a wild spectacle of war and valor. 3, 2, 1. Fire! The torpedoes shot forward, streaking through the chaos with a force of their own. Time seemed to slow as they hurtled toward the weak point, the hopes of the Spartan fleet riding on their success. Every crew member held their breath, hearts racing as the torpedoes neared their target, a collective prayer hanging in the air. The torpedoes struck true, detonating in a brilliant explosion that lit up the void. For a brief moment, the darkness was banished by a blaze of light, the shockwave rippling through the enemy ships as the protective barrier around the flagship flickered and faltered. Leonidax could see the enemy crew scrambling, confusion erupting, among their ranks. "Yes, we've done it!" one of the crew members shouted, a cheer erupting from the bridge as relief washed over them. But Leonidax's heart raced with a mix of exhilaration and dread. This battle was far from over. "Don't celebrate yet," he barked, regaining their focus. "We need to capitalize on this opening." With renewed resolve, he guided his ship forward, ready to seize the moment as the Spartan fleet rallied behind him, their spirits ignited by the flicker of hope. The dance of destiny was far from over, and Leonidax was determined to lead his crew to victory, whatever it might cost them. Chapter 12. The Final Stand. The shockwave from the explosion rippled outward, shaking the very fabric of the battlefield. Leonidax held his breath, watching as the energy from the vortex array sputtered and faded, the once mighty weapon now crippled beyond repair. Cheers erupted from the crew, their shouts and laughter a cacophony of triumph as the realization of their victory washed over them. But Leonidax knew that their fight was far from over. "Rally the ships," he commanded, his voice rising above the tumult. "We push forward now, we finish this." With renewed vigor, the Spartan fleet surged ahead, their spirits lifted by the success of their strike. The sight of the Eclipse flagship, once a symbol of their enemy's power, now breaking. A part ignited a fire within the hearts of the Spartans. But as they moved in for the final assault, chaos erupted among the enemy ranks. Leonidax spotted the cloaked commander at the heart of the flagship, fury etched across his face, his dark eyes burning with a mix of rage and disbelief as he witnessed his fleet crumble before him. "Prepare to board," Leonidax ordered, determination coursing through him. "We end this now." The Spartans launched their boarding pods, cutting through the remaining enemy defenses with relentless precision. The air was thick with tension as they breached the flagship, engaging in fierce hand-to-hand combat with the remnants of the Eclipse Armada. Clashing swords, blaring alarms, and the cries of battle filled the air, creating a symphony of chaos that echoed throughout the metal hulls of the enemy ship. Each Spartan fought with the strength of their ancestors, their resolve unyielding as they pressed forward, embodying the spirit of their people. As they fought their way to the command center, Leonidax felt a fire burning within him, a potent blend of fear, hope, and unyielding determination. This was their moment of reckoning, the culmination of everything they had fought for. He pushed through the chaos, each step echoing with the weight of his ancestors' legacy. The faces of those who had fallen flashed through his mind, each one a reminder of what was at stake. This was not just a battle, it was a fight for the very soul of the Dominion. Finally, he burst into the command chamber, the stench of smoke and metal assaulting his senses. There, amidst the wreckage of his flagship, stood the cloaked commander, a dark figure enshrined in the shadows of his own making. The two locked eyes, and in that moment, Leonidax felt the weight of his ancestors behind him, their presence a force that steadied his hand and sharpened his resolve. "You've lost," Leonidax declared, his voice steady as he drew his weapon, the blade gleaming with a promise of justice. "Your tyranny ends here." The commander's lips curled into a sneer, his confidence unshaken even in defeat. "You think you can defeat me? This battle is just the beginning. You know nothing of true power." Leonidax charged, fueled by the memories of his people, the dreams of a brighter future that flickered in his heart like a beacon in the dark. As they clashed, energy crackled around them, the very fabric of destiny hanging in the balance. Each blow exchanged was not just a fight for survival, but a fight for hope, for freedom, and for the legacy of the Dominion. The weight of every Spartan who had fought, bled, and died in this war was upon his shoulders, driving him to fight harder, faster, and with more ferocity than ever before. With a final powerful strike, Leonidax disarmed the commander, sending his weapon skittering. Across the floor, the commander fell to his knees, the fury in his eyes replaced by disbelief. "No, it can't end like this," he gasped, his voice trembling as he looked up at Leonidax, the light of defeat dawning on his face. "This is for all those who believed in a brighter tomorrow," Leonidax said, his voice unwavering, a rallying cry for all those who had suffered under the Eclipse's rule. The energy in the room shifted, an electric charge as the remaining Eclipse forces began to falter, their morale shattered by the fall of their leader. With the commander down, the Spartan fleet erupted in victory, their cheers echoing through the void as they reclaimed their legacy. Amidst the wreckage of the battlefield, Leonidas stood tall, the adrenaline surging through him, knowing that they had forged a new path for their people, a path illuminated by the flicker of hope that had once seemed so distant. In that moment, as the stars shone brightly above them, Leonidas understood that their fight had not just been for survival, but for the very essence of what it meant to be Spartan. Together they had faced the darkness and emerged into the light, ready to embrace the future with unwavering courage and a united spirit. As he looked around at his fellow Spartans, their faces alight with joy and triumph, he knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, a future filled with promise and potential, where they would build a new legacy, not just of war but of peace and unity for generations to come. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the story. Let me know in the comments what ideas you would like the next story to be about. Please leave a thumbs up, share, subscribe, comment.